Hey guys, we're live on the moon. It's Tuesday evening, about 10 minutes after 8. Skies are pretty clear down here. The moon is rising. It's a harvest kind of moon. You know, the kind of moon when you look up there and it looks like green cheese. The wind is fairly calm. Every once in a while I get a little gust. I'm going to try to do a complete survey. It's been about 4 or 5 days since I've done one because of the weather. We've had rain and all kinds of clouds. And I thought I'd start here at least with familiar territory. It's going to be a full moon tonight, and it's going to be interesting if later on I put a Barlow on there and see what I can do. But right now I'm going to just do a normal survey of the moon. I've got my 90-degree diagonal in, and we're going to kind of go up and down and up and down. And I'm going to kind of go over to the edge. For those of you joining me for the first time, my name is Bill Bryce, and I live in a suburb of Houston called Richmond. And I currently have a passion to look at the moon every night it's feasible. My telescope's Celestron Nexstar 8SE. Let me drop the exposure down just to see if we can see if we darken it up, it makes it a little darker, but you can see some of these points of light. See these points of light, I call them? I don't think they're craters. I think they're, I don't know what they are. Now see, when I increase the exposure, then now you can see less detail, but more light. On this particular moon, because I have the diagonal in, right now I'm heading toward the top of the moon. You might think that's the north side of the moon. As you're looking up, it's actually the bottom of the moon. And quite frankly, the bottom of the moon seems to have more craters than the top of the moon. So up is down and down is up. The way I have my rig set up, I'm using a high definition camera, and when it's a full moon, it's hard to see crisp detail that you normally would in a shadow line. If you're watching this video for the first time, you might want to go back a couple and look at. I did I'm doing the circumference. Is what I'm doing right now, just the circumference of the moon, and I did one before we got sopped in with the clouds. Now see all those points of light. Let me just drop the exposure down and see how they come out. They kind of stick out. See, like there's one there, one there. And this particular area looks to me like a runway. You can see now it's going this way. We've seen it going other ways. Oops. Let me turn the exposure up again. If you go to a couple back, I did a spectacular video of a mountain range, what I call the the coughing mountains because I had a coughing fit. There's our dragon, guys. See the head, the front foot, the wing off the back, just like a dragon, and then the rear foot. I have a name, by the way, if you're joining me for the first time. I have a funny name for different things I've located on the moon, kind of landmarks that kind of let me know where I'm at. Like that first thing I showed you there was a sea or an ocean, or they call it a mar on the moon, and I gave that mar a name, the ferret, because it looks like a little ferret with a little mouth and whiskers. One of these days I'm going to assign real names to these craters. I think that's a Scarsis crater right there. And it looks like it's always really, really bright. See these wavy lines that you see? That's because the atmospherics on the moon. The moon has a tendency in the atmosphere to take the Earth's atmosphere and magnify it, and so you have convection currents in the sky, and every once in a while we'll see those, like those waves. See the waves are caused by the atmospherics. See the waves. That right there, by the way, is a my birth defect. That's these high resolution cameras. Every one of them have a different, I call it a birth defect, somewhere on the lens. And mine is just right there. So if you see it, it's not on the moon. It's not a UFO. It's not a flying saucer. It's just a little manufacturing defect that are on these cameras. I have the thing focused. It's going to look like this on a full moon. You're going to have a broad stroke kind of an image, and you can see right now see the waves down there. Oops, and that's another thing. This little thing that pops up right there, that's at the bottom. That's my taskbar. I auto hide it, and if I'm sloppy in my cursor movement, my mouse movement, you're going to see that. I am experimenting tonight with a new microphone, and it's a clip-on. I've been having a problem with well, I think it's a noise cancellation software. Okay, now what we're going to do, that's our ferret, by the way, right there. That's where we started. We did a complete circumference of the moon. What I do, I like to get out every night and look at the moon. And I'd like to see if there's any differences, any abnormalities. Sometimes I see flying saucers on the moon. I mean, I know they're flying. I don't know what they are. They're shadows. If you're watching this and you see a shadow go across the moon, it's something flying above the surface of the moon, casting a shadow on the moon. And I verified this with doing slow motion of my video, and actually seeing it contour the mountains on the range on the moon. Now, I have no idea what it is. I call it a flying saucer. It could be a spaceship. It could be, well, I just don't know what it is. It's strange, and that's the other thing about me. I'm up here. I'm looking for strange things. Now what we're going to do now, we're going to go all the way to the top, and let me just try to focus. Let me go back down to the ferret, and then I'm going to try to show you that if I do focus, it it is just about as focused as it can get. I do this every once in a while. See those circles? I can focus on that. Okay, I'll just show you. See, it's slightly out of focus. It's hard, and that's about it. That's about as good as we can get. This is it's a tough moon. See, there's something we've seen before. See that skid mark right there? We've seen that up close and personal with the shadow line right next to it. Now let me drop the exposure down, and that'll come out a little bit clearer. See that crater right there? That is a crater, and that mark on the moon, that is a skid mark. Let me leave the exposure like that for just a little bit so you can see better the color on the moon. One of the biggest falsehoods, I won't call them lies, just NASA has a tendency not to tell you the truth. That's the way I believe. And there's a lot of color on the moon, and you can see it. Like right there, you can see a kind of a bluish tinge, and then you move over here. The moon is just all full of color. And I really find it fascinating, and I like to show off the color. When I bump the exposure up, like right now, let me do that. You can see you don't see the color quite as easy. The other thing you notice, uh, every once in a while you'll see a little. Let me put the exposure down so you can see some color. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just go up to the top of the moon, straight up, and I'm going to move over to the left just a little bit. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try to slowly move down. It's my contention that the moon is home base for aliens, fallen angels. If you're I'm out here on the porch. I've been, by the way, the last 3 sessions I was inside the house. Tonight is a very nice, calm evening, and I have a praying mantis crawling all over my screen. And there was a UFO. Did you see that shadow? Just like that, right across. That was a shadow on the moon, on the surface of the moon. And it's my contention that that is a fallen angel flying saucer or spaceship or alien vehicle flying from one of their bases on the moon to another base. I believe they're up there. One of the things my contention is in Genesis 6, when the angels came down and cohabited with the women of earth and had giants and men renowned offspring, that and then the flood occurred with Noah. These fallen angels uh, basically set up some base camps on Mars and on the moon, and I believe they've been up there for a long time. Now, isn't that pretty? Let me raise the exposure up just a little bit, and you can see this right here is a very, very bright uh, crater, and so is this one down here. But I think when you're looking at these Mars in certain lights, these are mountain ranges. And these are defined, these are craters. You can see they're clearly craters, and so are these, deeper. But see this area right here, it's called a mar. And if I increase the gamma, nope, I'll decrease the gamma. That looks a little bit better. You can see there's another flying saucer. You say that's a bug. No, that's not a bug. My telescope's a Schmidt-Carradine telescope. You could put your hand in front of that lens and you wouldn't see anything. I mean, you would see the moon. My contention is that every time we see those things, they are, in fact, something flying on the surface of the moon. When you're looking at this mar, see these things kind of right here? I don't believe that those are craters. I believe that those are something under the surface. I think this is like a crystal lake. Now these are craters right here on top of the crystal. I think at one time these were like water or whatever, and somehow they're translucent now, and you can see them. Let's continue our survey. I do what I like to call a survey of the moon. That's where now see that right there. That's an indication to me that my contrast is just a little bit high, so I drop it down a little bit. And see that right there? It says high, H-I. That means right below that, that's one of my markers. Right below that is the ferret. And there's the ferret right there. See the ferret? There's his two eyes, and it's harder to see, but he has whiskers right in there. Okay, let's move a little bit to the left here and continue our survey going up. I had a friend in Great Britain that analyzed one of my videos. If you look at one of my videos, I said I saw a whole fleet of flying saucers, and there were 27 on that one video. Well, he actually analyzed one of them flying across the surface of the moon. Let me just kind of stop right here, sort of, if I can. Oops. I want to go down. This control sometimes is persnickety. See, like right there, you can see a clearly defined mountain range. And he watched my my so-called flying saucer fly across the moon, and it's a shadow that you're seeing on the moon. and he saw it fly like this, and then it got to the mountain range, and it went up, and then in other words, you could actually see it contour the surface of the moon. A bug doesn't do that. A bug definitely does not do that. And that's the clincher. That's what told me that these things I'm seeing flying, uh, these shadows, in fact, I believe, are shadows on the moon. They're not ice in our atmosphere. They're not bugs. They're actually physical shadows that are, it's as if a 707 was flying above the surface of the moon, and the sun projected a shadow on the surface. That's what I think that they are. Now here's an interesting area, and I'm going to pause here for a minute. This area here, I know, I believe, I say I know, I believe, is a base, a moon base. And the telltale key is this large crater here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hornet nest craters. These are craters that stick up in the air. And this area right here is what I call Crystal Lake. This is a sea. And I've taken extensive close-ups of this area and proved that these craters are half underwater. They're not underwater. They're under. It looks like they're actually below the surface of the crystal. And see, you can see this crystal, this crater right here, where the top part is out of the crystal, and then how that goes down below. I think at one time this was a liquid and it solidified. The astronomers will tell you this is all sand, but I contend that you can see through the sand. It's translucent. And it's hard to see the detail, but I believe that there is a building right there with Americans housed in it right there. And if you go back and look at my video of Crystal Lake and the city, I say structures, you'll see like an atrium. You see a big building, and there's also a building complex right here, and all in here. I believe this is a bunch of structures on the moon. You can't see it in this venue. Um, you can't see it because the lighting's not conducive to seeing it. And over here we had an L-shaped building, which again you can't see right now. By the way, my praying mantis has left. Anyhow, tonight I am outside, and I came outside for a very particular reason. The day was pretty cloudy, and when it's cloudy, you just about have to be out by the telescope so you can see when the clouds are going to approach the moon, so you know if it's a clear night and everything. It's good to be inside because you don't have the bugs. I have a setup where I can control my telescope from inside the house. I have the high definition camera on the telescope, and the output from that I have going into a program called Debut video capture software. And basically I'm using another program to project it on my screen, this is the screen, and you're looking at it right here, and I'm capturing that screen at about 6 frames a second. And Let's continue our survey. I have a second monitor set up right next to it where I have all the, I have a focus control where I can control the focus of the telescope remotely from the computer. And I have a camera control where I can control the brightness, contrast, saturation, sharpness, gamma, white balance, backlight compensation, and gain, as well as exposure. Like, let me drop the exposure down right here. See, I darken it up, and then I can brighten it. Let's see, I brighten it too much, and I'll leave it right there. That's a little bright. Well, no, it's just marginally. I'll leave it right there. Right there is kind of a happy medium where you can see the lines. See these? Here's a good example. This crater uh, has all these. It's kind of like when an impact, the asteroid impacted the surface of the moon, and then you can see all the, like the explosion, and it went out. And that's what these are too. They're that crater right there probably projected out. Well, if I turn, let me turn the exposure up. See, as I turn the exposure up, it's harder to see those lines. I'll leave it right there. That's a happy medium. And here you can see these points of light right here. And let me turn the contrast a little bit down. Every time you look at the moon, you're looking at it in a different perspective. Right now, this moon is the smallest moon, I think, of the year. I think the full moon is as small as it's going to be, which means it's as far away from Earth as a full moon will ever get. I've seen this Mar right here with that projection on this screen, just like this, with the same camera, and that was when we were closer to it. Every time you look at the moon, you're looking at it in a different perspective, and that's why I go up there every day I can, weather permitting, and look at the moon. Because I know one of these days I'm going to be up there looking at the moon, and there's going to be something extraordinary happen to me, and you'll experience it with me. And you can tell that there is absolutely no shadow line on the moon. The shadow was over here and it was creeping. Let's do this now that we've finished our basic survey. Let's go back and let's do another circumference of the moon before I shut it down. And I might try another session after this uh, with the Barlow. I have now see how it's kind of really bright right there. That means I have my exposure too high. If I drop it down, see how it brings out more detail, and if I drop it all the way down, it's too much. But right there is about a happy medium, and you can see that crater. But if I have the exposure like that, you can't even, you're losing too much detail. So I'm always playing traffic cop conductor with the controls here to try to meet a happy medium I felt real bad that I couldn't get out here. I was out here several times, and I was ready to start recording, and it started raining. I mean, it's very discouraging whenever you're trying to do the moon every night and then you can't. Well, that's kind of really interesting. I know they're craters, but it looks like a mountain range too, and I have no idea what that is right there, but it's something. And I like to do the moon while the shadow line's moving, because you see all kinds of detail comes out in the shadow line. You can see when the moon is like this, there is more color to the moon when I turn the exposure down and everything, but you're losing a lot of the detail that you would normally expect to see, that you see normally when you're looking at craters and mountain ranges along a shadow line. I have several Barlow lenses, and I have done a full survey with the 2.5 Barlow. I might try to do that later on. And then I have another Barlow, which is it's Mike's, my friend, who has a similar rig, and he has a 5 times Barlow. I don't know that on a night like this we're going to see very much detail though with a Barlow, because it's too it's too bright, but it's also there's too much atmospherics that just kind of you can see that instead of looking at details of like mountain ranges like which are here, they look like clouds, and that's a telltale sign that that you're not able to see things. Okay, well I think that's as good a place as any to stop. We'll just I think we did a good survey. We looked at the entire moon, and I'm going to try a session with the Barlow, and if I am successful, I'll be posting that too eventually. Hope everybody's in good health and going to have a good week, and I hope I have clear skies, and for you and yours, I wish for you clear skies, guys.